Welcome back everyone. Today we'll be looking at the hidden truths, the secrets to what was at the time considered the world's deepest and largest manually dug railway cutting in the world, to find out the hidden truths and its true potential purpose. So you are joining me in Harbury, which is a village located in Warwickshire in England, which is located upon a steep hill, located around 6 miles southeast of Leamington Spa, and Harbury is around 200 feet in higher elevation than Leamington. It also happens to be located 6 miles from the historical town of Warwick to the northwest of this location. This famous railway cutting is referred to as the Harbury Cutting. The cutting and the railway were allegedly constructed between 1847 and 1852 by the then famous builder and engineer Brunel. Brunel was regarded as one of the most ingenious and prolific figures in engineering history, and he was one of the greatest figures of the Industrial Revolution. Brunel, in my opinion, was a key player during the previous global reset of the mid to late 1800s. He had a role as an architect and engineer in the physical infrastructure and hijacking of the Earth energy grid. It was built as part of the Birmingham and Oxford junction of the world famous Great Western Railway line, which connected the cities of Oxford and Birmingham to London. The cutting is 34 metres or around 111 feet deep. It was recognised as the largest, deepest and steepest hand-dug rail cutting in the world at its time. We are told the original intention was to build a much longer tunnel, but due to the unstable ground, it resulted in the cutting from the hillside being constructed instead, which we are told was dug entirely by hand. However, from my own research, there is a lack of valid proof of photos or any other documentation proving that people manually dug out the cutting, and also considering the sheer scale of the digging which would have been involved in creating this cutting. One of the earliest images was this photo taken around 1869, which was 17 years after construction and completion of the cutting and the railway. It is thought that this picture shows the quarry siding and lime kiln construction. Could the whole idea of the cutting just have been a cover-up, and the cutting having already existed from either some kind of natural feature? For one example, it could have been part of a root system of a giant tree which may have been located at this location sometime when giant trees existed. By looking at the rather unusual angles and curvatures, it would make sense that by simply removing part of the giant tree root, it would have acted like a mould in the lias clay and limestone, leaving behind the curvature and angles of the cutting. Another possibility is be some kind of remains from a previous advanced human civilization infrastructure. Do you guys believe that this cutting was dug out using only manual labour and spades, like they tell us? Let's start by taking a look at the name of the village, Harbury. The original name for the village was Harbury. So, with the name of Harbury, simply by taking away the last letter, the letter Y, we are left with the word harbour. Could that just be yet another random coincidence? Or was it that the village was named after the cutting which had already existed here, creating either a natural or artificial equivalent of a landlocked harbour? It's also worth mentioning that this cutting happens to be located on an energy node of the Earth energy grid. There is a crossing of two major ley lines where the cutting is situated, as well as a geological fault line. What this means is that this is a high energy point of the telluric Earth energies, and this location would have certainly been an important location historically due to this energy. The rather unusually deep curving cuttings are formed at steep angles in blue lias clays, which lay over a bed of limestone. The cutting is about 1.55 miles long, which is around 2.5 kilometres. It is 34 metres deep, that's around 111 feet, and around 600 feet wide. It has the 66 metre or 219 foot Harbury Tunnel at its heart. This tunnel divides the cuttings into the east section, which is referred to as the Churchlands cutting, and the west section, which is referred to as the Harbury cutting, being the closest to the village. We are told that the construction of this cutting and the railway took only 5 years to complete, which was completed in 1852. Let's take a look at Britannica Encyclopedia's definition of a tunnel and underground passageways. Horizontal underground passageways produced by excavation or occasionally by nature's action in dissolving a soluble rock such as limestone. It would be of no surprise then that the subterranean geological rock of this location happens to be limestone. There were also lime and cement works adjacent to the cutting, as you will see later in this video. In 2015, disaster struck on Saturday, the 31st of January 2015. A major failure of 200 metres, which is around 656 feet, of the embankment occurred. This created a landslide where the crest dropped by 4 metres or 13 feet, with over 350,000 tonnes of soil sliding towards the train track. The landslide took away part of the West Portal, which is a curved mass brickwork structure over 50 metres, that's 164 feet wide, and 15 metres or 50 feet high. I also find it interesting that the entrances to tunnels on the hillside are referred to as portals. Is there another definition to this? I wonder. The landslide resulted in closing one of England's busiest railways for 6 weeks, which usually have around 130 trains passing through a day. This landslide was also very costly, as it cost multi-millions of pounds worth of remedial work to be carried out and to completely restructure the West cutting. let's take a quick look at some likely causes of landslides on sloping grounds. In 2008, Network Rail, which is the government body who owns and is responsible for the rail infrastructure in England, Network Rail made the controversial decision to remove and destroy the trees along the embankment on the western cutting for what they said was to protect the tracks from landslides. In my honest opinion, I believe this was a deliberate act, that by removing the trees, it would severely increase the likelihood of a landslide at a later time. It is proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that trees on steep slopes more often than not prevent landslides. They do this by binding the soil with the roots, anchoring it to the bedrock and reducing the amount of water it contains. According to the UN's Food and Agriculture Organizations, where there are climates like ours, there is a high risk of landslides for about 15 years after trees have been removed. It's quite interesting, as on the 26th of February the same year, 2015, the rail operator Network Rail announced on the BBC News that the Harbury Tunnel landslip was not caused by tree removal, stating there was no truth that the landslide at Harbury was caused by the lack of vegetation on the cutting slopes. So, according to a Network Rail, it just seems like a random coincidence that the landslide occurred after they removed the trees from the embankment. There was also a newspaper article in the Guardian newspaper on the 25th of February 2015, which featured the Harbury landslide. The article stated that sheep could be partially responsible towards landslides that occur on sloping grounds around Britain as well as the rest of the world. That a report which was published by the Scottish Government in the year 2012 acknowledges that sheep are likely to be partially responsible for landslides on slopes. The reason they say is that sheep make the slopes unstable by compacting and eroding the soil, thereby preventing trees and shrubs from growing. It notes when the number of sheep exceeds danger point, erosions become severe. Let me know what you think, guys. What is more likely to contribute and play a greater part towards a landslide? The deliberate removal of trees or the overgrazing of sheep? I know which one I believe. It was originally estimated that the remedial work involved would cost in excess of £5 million. That's around $6 million US. However, I could not find anywhere what the final costs were for the works. I wouldn't be surprised if it was double that amount due to the complexity and scale of the work. The engineers involved in carrying out the remedial work discovered that there was a vertical fault line of limestone that runs parallel to the railway, and it's located approximately 35 metres or 115 feet away from the rail tracks. They hypothesised that this could have caused the landslide to shift in such a dramatic way. I wonder if the trees had not been removed and would have been on the slope at the time, would the landslide still have occurred, or would the landslide have been less dramatic than it was? As part of the remedial work, the engineers installed a sophisticated monitoring system on the embankment of the slopes and around the tunnel portal. This included 80 wireless slope sensors and wall sensors for the tunnel portal. These sensors are designed to detect any microscopic movement, and the information is collated by datum monitoring services. This information is passed through to their control center, which operates around the clock, transmitting information to Network Rail via their internet site. Let's look at this in more detail. 80 wireless wall sensors. Surely these sensors would have to be connected to some kind of port, a hub, or a communication tower, enabling the wireless sensors to transmit any data readings. In order to do so and detect any movements of the slope whatsoever, it would have to record frequencies and vibrations, which in effect is energy. So these would have to be measuring the telluric earth energy levels from both the ley lines and the fault line. With the controller's obsession of deforestation, it's of no surprise that since December 2019, coming up to the start of the pandemic, Network Rail decided to invest an additional £9 million, that's around 11 million US dollars, to the eastern cutting to restructure and stabilize the other slope. Again, this involved permanent removals of the trees from this other slope. As you can see in these images taken in 2012 of the cutting, it shows that the cutting was heavily forested. Again, this is additional proof of the controller's desire to destroy nature, replacing it with technological advances. The work on the western side of the portal, which was where the landslide occurred, was much more intense and required significantly more materials and labour to the groundworks. It's interesting that no final figures have been publicly made available for the works which were carried out on the western portal side where the landslide occurred. So it is quite safe to say, with the investment that they've announced of £9 million on the other eastern section, the total investment of the works for both sections would be at a minimum of £20 million, or around 24 million US dollars. Such a significant investment, wouldn't you say, for a stretch of groundworks covering just over half a mile. Let's focus our attention now on the historical cement and lime works. The whole area along cutting was heavily mined for its mineral content, as we can see from the historical image on the screen, which shows evidence of the quarry being alongside the cutting, as well as evidence of the lime work. In the year 1820, a Richard Greaves established a Blue Lias lime plant in the neighbouring village of Bishop's Itchington. The Greaves Works was one of only 3 places in the country producing what was known as Portland cement. However, following the opening of the Great Western Railway in 1852, Greaves, Bull and Laking established new cement works adjacent to the line in 1855, claiming to make Portland cement. By 1882, there were 4 kilns in operation, producing 120 tons of Portland cement per week. Then, in 1907, capacity was increased by new kiln technology. With the addition of extra kilns, they were producing 600 tons per week. 20 years later, in 1927, the Harbury Cement Works was purchased by the Allied Cement Manufacturers, ACM, which were also known as the Red Triangle Group, which was under the chairmanship of Henry Horn. However, just within a few years, the economic climate had led to overcapacity in the cement industry, and ACM, the Allied Cement Manufacturers, went out of business in 1931. How interesting! Red Triangle and Horn. Was this another pure coincidence relating with the red triangle and horn? Or could this be symbolising one of the controllers' malevolent deities by any chance? I wonder. In April 1932, the Harbury Cement Works were acquired by Associated Portland Cement Manufacturers. APCM is best known as the owner of Blue Circle Cement brand. The Harbury Works continued to produce Lias lime products in addition to cement until the start of World War II in 1939. We have other connections to World War II regarding the Harbury Cement Works and the cutting. It's worth mentioning that during World War II, the German bombers used landmarks to help guide them to their destinations. And the Harbury Cement Chimney was one of those landmarks which they used. It was reported that in 1942, the German bombers were coming up from the south over the Burton Dasset Hills, which is only 5 miles south from the cutting, Bishop Hitchington, and then the Harbury Cement Works chimney, in order to locate the cutting, along which we're told they could travel below the radar detection en route to Coventry, destroying the city of Coventry during the Blitz. I would question that the German fighters would have flown in and through the cutting, considering it's only 1.5 miles long, with the tunnel dividing the two sections. In my opinion, this would have made a dangerous manoeuvre just for the sake of being undetected by radar for literally just a matter of seconds. I believe that due to the cutting being located on a crossing of ley lines and fault line, together with the likelihood of plasma being emitted, as well as the angular structure of the cutting, it is far more likely this would have contributed to a possible magnetic deviation at the time to a much larger area, meaning that the German fighters wouldn't have had to fly directly inside and through that cutting. So I believe that the magnetic deviation due to the energy of this part of the grid would have prevented the fighter planes from being detected by radar, even flying at an altitude of several hundred feet over a much wider area, whilst they're en route to Coventry, which is located just 12 miles to the north. The Harbury Cement Works were located just as near to neighbouring village of Bishop's Hitchington as it was to the village of Harbury. It is quite evident the scar from the quarrying can still be clearly seen today, as we can see from this Google Earth image. The former quarry is now referred to as Bishop's Bowl Fishery. This sits on the 90-acre former limestone quarry works. Today, it is mainly used for the pursuit of carp fishing. The former quarry works has created a stone-faced bowl. It's interesting, however, that the whole site, including the railway cutting, is recorded as a site of scientific interest. From my own many years of research on earth energies and the grid, I have come to the conclusion that whenever an area of land is recorded as a site of scientific interest, that part of the land is significantly important to the controllers due to the high energy concentration telluric earth energies which are present there. The Bishop's Bowl fishery also happens to be quite symbolic. One of the first things I spotted on a Google Earth image of this bowl was the main fishing lake called Green Hill. The shape of this lake seems to resemble that of a kidney bowl. Symbolically, the kidney bowl is said to represent human emotions. So, could this purposefully be symbolizing the harvesting of emotional human energy? All around this bowl, there's what is as described as a low cliff of alternating hard limestones of blue, grey, clay, blue lias formations of Jurassic rock. It is believed these formations run under the country all the way from Lyme Regis in the south to Whitby in the northeast. Let's take a closer look at these blue lias rocks. Notice how the rocks look to be made of individual blocks, which would appear to have been precisely cut using some form of machinery. Do these blocks of rock look like they have been formed naturally, or do they appear to be man-made? What do you think, guys? To me, these cliffs and these rocks resemble that of a wall or some kind of other advanced previous human civilization infrastructure. A final thought on Bishop's Bowl. I noticed that simply by flipping a Google Earth image of the bowl, it looks to me like an uncanny resemblance to that of the Bishop chess piece from Game of Chess. What do you think, guys? Again, looking at the name of the nearby village of Bishop Sitchington, I am sure this is no coincidence. Not only is the image of the bowl looking like a bishop chess piece, I believe it seems to be symbolising the village of Bishop Itchington as being another pawn, another piece on the chessboard, which seems to be showing the bishop flicking off the other piece of the pawn in the game of chess. The game of chess makes a great analogy to finish this video. It is, of my opinion, I believe the controllers could be using the Earth energy grid just like a giant chessboard, moving the different pieces, the pawns, around the grid, using destruction, conflicts, wars, deforestation, quarrying and mining. Doing this in order for their ways of deliberately manipulating the energetic field, diffusing and transmuting the high vibrational energies of the Earth grid. As the high vibrational energies of the Earth grid, I believe, are far too high for their malevolent deities to survive. What they end up doing is feeding and fueling those deities, those entities, with the lower vibrational emotional energies that they require to survive. The good news is, from my own research, and as well as everything that's happening in the world right now, I believe they have lost control of the Earth grid a long time ago. The true beneficial energies of the grid are far stronger and more powerful and a greater force, and are awakening and growing stronger and stronger day by day. They know this, and this is why they are trying to focus their attention on AI and technological advancement, connecting everything to the artificial cloud so that they feel that they are in some kind of control, as the artificial cloud is a field that they feel that they have created and they have ultimate control over. However, there are just two simple words to say to all those controllers and their leaders, masters, who do not have humanity's and nature's best interest at heart. The two simple words are checkmate. Their game is over. They are now at the point in the game when they know they have no way of winning. Love, light, and real, true, the ultimate creator, the God of unconditional love, has already won. They will see this for themselves much sooner than they could ever possibly imagine. So thank you guys for watching the video to the end. If you enjoyed this video and found it interesting, do remember to click the like and subscribe. As many of you know, we are all one consciousness. Be that individual player who has an important role contributing to the ultimate winning team of unconditional love. Simply by raising your own vibration and living in the frequency and vibration of pure consciousness and unconditional love. So until next time guys, peace, love and joy to you all. Thank you for watching.